Berserk. Can you tell I'm in a little bit different of a mood now? I have a couple of things to kind of preamble this video with. One, just self-promo out of the way. I accidentally released 2 videos at once yesterday. One of them is meant to go out next week while I'm on break, so I accidentally squashed my review of Snow Crash, a very important book I had a lot to say about. So if y'all are interested in that review, I highly recommend you check it on now. 2, I didn't continue on past where some people recommend I did for this specific review for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to follow the structure that the series is kind of putting forth in the collections. If it ends at the end of 4, I'm going to stop there. And also, I have a lot to say about what has happened, and if I continued on for this review, I would feel constrained time-wise. So it's not as much ground that was covered in the last video, though it's still a substantial amount. I'm basically going to be doing half of the climax here, and then finishing off the second half of the climax in a part 2 to this one that I'll be releasing next week. I hope people understand why. There is so much to unpack here. The editing load for these videos has also gotten substantially higher now that I'm having to do a censored and uncensored version for Patreon, so yeah, I'm gonna have to be taking these a little bit slower in some ways, but it's worth it because this is also the most fun I have ever had reviewing a series with an audience. I do want to say before we get into these very dark topics and it becomes weird for me to say so, Berserk fans, you have given me probably now one of my new favorite fantasy series of all time, and the beauty within the horror that Berserk is able to craft is one of the most impactful stories I've ever encountered. I am thinking about Berserk constantly. I feel like such a fucking idiot for ever doubting that manga could be just as good, deep, what have you, as any other medium. But without any further ado, let's get into Berserk, chapters Requiem of the Wind to the Feast. Through the Feast. And that's where we're stopping here. So immediately, this bit of Berserk picks up with a somber moment. We are seeing the remnants of the Band of the Hawk that don't even fully know yet that they are the last remnants because the bulk of the remain of their forces was wiped out and there's just one kid left from that. They're pretty much trying to decide what to do. Now that Griffith is not in the condition to lead them in any way, shape, or form. In fact, we even see someone saying, like, he's going to recover, right? Which the answer is no. Morale is at an all-time low. Casca, to her credit, and she deserves all the credit in the world, I think is handling this the best she could. There's no rash decisions being made. She's gotten to a safe location, and they need to rest and recover. Guts seems a bit frozen as well. He's not sure what steps to take next. And I think this art kind of says it all. It's actually a really good encapsulation of all of the development that Casca and Guts have gone through. I think Mura does a really good job in terms of using stage terminology, blocking his actors within his art to always kind of subliminally or overtly let you, the reader, know what exactly the dynamics are here. And here we see Casca standing tall before the Band of the Hawk, but their heads are bowed. There's even one just laying against a rock who just destroyed his own weapon. Guts is a bit removed, sitting behind Casca, though, as clear support. Maybe I'm reading way too much into this, but if I was the author, those would be the reasons why I laid it out like this. We also have, finally, the narration that's saying, "Only the wind announced the end of the fight," which is such a line to have here where, yes, Casca has reached her full potential. She is the leader, but that doesn't change the circumstance, something that was outside of her control, meaning that to any reasonable mind, the Band of the Hawk, at least for what it was, is done. Despite so many people breaking away from Griffith's hand and his control, the formation, the idea of what the Band of the Hawk was based on him. So you can't really continue on in spirit what was formed before. And with Guts having already walked away once, I like that he's kind of pulled out. He's even dressed differently. They're all in their armor while he's looking more casual. It's just such a tapestry you can look into in so many different ways, but we gotta move on. I also love that we see Judo step up here, and he's giving credit to Casca for letting them all survive, get through this, and saying if there's anyone who's given the most, it is her. And this is kind of the end of this meeting. We see Casca go away, and she's asking for time before she makes any decision. She needs to think about this, and that is her character to a T. She is someone who is not rash, she is someone who is thoughtful, and she is a very good leader. Guts, being not all of those qualities, catches up to her though, and we get a little bit of an insight into Casca's perspective as she talks with Guts, someone she can be very honest with. And we have these lines that so succinctly set up her mental state. Everyone's weak, and so they cling to dreams and other people. I wonder what you can do for someone who's lost what they cling to. Kind words, stern rebukes, and then she falls into Guts, feeling the weight of the responsibility of all these people. And we cut to another one of, it's getting a little redundant at this point, but I totally understand why it's happening, Griffith's observational stairs. We then get Casca going to check on Griffith, and she's changing his bandages, being really kind and gentle, except he lurches onto her and kind of pins her underneath him. And at first she fights it, but then eventually I guess she kind of realizes he's going for comfort and just embraces him and gives him a hug. Insert because of my patrons who got to see the uncensored version of this. Apparently this was an attempted R word from Griffith. Someone went ahead and spoiled for me later on that apparently that does happen, so thanks for that. But this was like an early foreshadowing according to what these people are saying. I reread it a couple times and I don't know, I really could have picked up on that without that being told to me, because he does just flop down on top of her and then they both just kind of go limp. But apparently that's what that is, and I just want to put that correction in there because people on Patreon let me know. I'm very unsure how to feel about that. One, because in the last bit, when I thought Griffith was just hugging Guts, people informed me I saw that wrong. He was trying to choke Guts. So many comments letting me know I missed that, and I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. There's a moment where he's clearly trying to choke Guts, and so now seeing him on top of Casca, I'm like, get up! And I'm not sure if he's trying to do something and he's just too weak, or if he is actually just weirdly asserting himself over Casca now that he watched her and Guts be close. There's just so many layers of depravity to the psyche of this character that even if he was just trying to seek comfort, I don't like it. It's like watching Ted Bundy give someone a hug. I don't trust it. Which I've seen the comments saying I'm talking too much about how far Griffith has gone, but that's really where the narrative focus is for him. I can't say too much about him aside from that. I mean, his state is absolutely just the weakest it could conceivably be while having him have any agency to himself, which the narrative is clearly setting him up for what is about to happen. They had to put him oh so low so that this ambitious person could be, we'll talk about this in a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. But we then have Judo talking with Guts, and he is encouraging Guts to go on with Casca on their own, and he's saying you need to take Casca away even if you have to drag her. This is not the place for her anymore. She's developed beyond it. We're just gonna become a band of thieves. So just get on out of here. I didn't make it happy. It's a very somber moment, but I'm feeling the need to interject some kind of joy here. But just then, some members of the Band of the Hawk come up to Guts, and they're asking him to be the new leader, which, I'm sorry, what the fuck? I get why Guts is really strong on the battlefield, and that's what people look for, but Casca has absolutely done an incredible job, and this guy abandoned you. It's believable because people respect strength over everything else, and Guts represents that, but it's not who I'd be backing. Don't get me wrong, I love Guts, but I've also seen how impulsive he is, and that's not the person I want making decisions for my future. But we cut to Casca after her encounter with Griffith, and she's clutching her chest, and I'm not entirely sure what that's supposed to mean. Two things with the reframing of what happened before being a sexual assault from Griffith, and absolutely her anxiety attack makes sense here, and it's not depression like I'm about to say. And also, people on the early uncensored video, seriously, y'all are the best, pointed out that the people who are asking Guts to be his leader are his former raiders. That's why they specifically have loyalty to him. I still find it a bit weird because there was so much resentment towards him after he left, but I get after everything that happened, they're gonna be like, dude, you're really strong, please take us with you. Guts is coming up to her like, hey, what's wrong? And he thinks Griffith did something to her, but she screams, stop it, no, that's not it. And then we realize it's just a lot of depression, and she's realizing that she does want to leave, but she can't leave Griffith like this. And she confesses to Guts that she has to stay here and take care of him. But she's also telling him that Guts needs to move on. He needs to be on his own because of that night where they overheard Griffith saying those things where he would never respect someone who's not his equal. And we're seeing Griffith is overhearing all of this. So Oopsie. But she's telling Guts to go on alone, and I really wish we would get the next beat of this scene just between them and Guts' response, because I really want to see Guts tell Casca, no, come away with me. And honestly, as a little fan, I'm hoping Guts will go, you know what? I'm done with a life of violence, Casca. Let's go to a remote part of this kingdom and start a farm. Have a family. Wouldn't that be nice? And Casca would go, yeah, fuck all this. Let's go off. That's the ending of Berserk I want. Can we get that? Can we get that, please? But Griffith, overhearing this, then starts to have a vision, and he sees a former version of himself as we switch into the chapter Back Alley Boy. And this version of himself shows him the castle he's been pursuing oh so fanatically his whole life, and we see him as a child running through a cobblestone street trying to go visit the castle. And here we see apparently he's actually climbed to the front of the cart he is in and is mushing the horses on to go to some location nearby. And of course, Guts and Casca see this and are like, oh my god, go get the people, we need to catch him, he's gonna kill himself, he's gonna be wounding himself, he's too dangerous, how could he do this, he could barely stand. And so Guts jumps on a wagon as well and starts chasing Griffith. But while Griffith is on this like desperate run away, we see him say to himself, yes, I rested a bit too long, I've got to go now, this playtime still hasn't ended, that back alley cobblestone path still goes on, making the metaphor for the journey he's been, to his destination. It's set up! But the cart crashes and Griffith is flung from it, and while he's spiraling through the air, the visions kind of consume him, and he sees a version of himself with Casca. It seems living a pretty domestic life. They have a child named Guts, and Casca is taking care of and loving Griffith. And as I'm saying this, I'm kind of clicking the fact that the reason Casca was probably so upset was because it seemed Griffith was trying to, after seeing her be intimate with Guts, establish his own intimacy with her, which was obviously very upsetting and manipulative, and was why Casca was saying, oh, I can't go with you, Guts, I need to stay here. But she was choosing Griffith over him. Am I misreading that? Oh my god, that's so painful. But the final bit of this domestic vision is Casca is bringing a spoon to Griffith's mouth, and it contains the Behelit, and as he crashes down into a stream, he is broken, seeing he has a ripped apart arm, but he starts laughing to himself, and then we see there is a sharp, jagged branch sticking up. Griffith crawls over to it and starts trying to kill himself, but just as he's about to do so, his hands find the Behelit. And there we get the flashback to Nosferatu Zot's narration saying, it will return to your hand because that's how it is. And I get this is happening through like demonic influence. We saw it go through a sewer grate, so it washed out into this stream, and that's how Griffith is getting it here. I don't particularly like that kind of plot device, though it happens all the time. It's just one that I'm not a big fan of. I'm not objectively right to not be a fan of it. It's just something that happens a lot in fiction where I'm like, I get it. Destiny's putting the object in your hand. But then I always kind of want like that Lord of the Rings opening montage of like the ring transitioning to all different things. I want to see the Behelit like getting kicked around by a fish and like accidentally swallowed by a shark, and the shark's like, oh, that's making me a demon, and then it becomes like a super evil shark and starts like eating everything around it, but then like it becomes too powerful and like its shark best friend has to kill it, and like it kills that shark, and the Behelit comes out and then like it washes into another like river by getting caught by a fish. That I'd like a Behelit little mini series if that'd be cool. I'd watch that. But they catch up to Griffith just as a solar eclipse begins to occur. Oh, SpaghettiOs. And we see blood has trickled down from Griffith onto the Behelit, and it's waking up within his very loose grasp. And he actually appears to be healing in some manner because he shouts, stay away? Or maybe, no, these aren't actual speech bubbles, so I think it's trying to say what he's trying to say, but not managing to through his wounds. Correct me if I'm reading that wrong. And we see from, apparently, the Eclipse shadow behind him, more Attack on Titan Titans begin to emerge. These look like Attack on Titan Titans. No one's gonna disagree with me on that. And if you do in the comments section, I support your subjective view. But I'm right. And at first, the Band of the Hawk thinks these might be pursuers, but quickly that becomes very apparent they're not, because they're gigantic, naked people in no discernible formation aside from just randomly scattered about. Griffith is still trying to get them to stay away, and he's thinking to himself, if you touch me now, to Guts, if you put your hand on my shoulder now, I'll never again with you. And we see Guts is touching his shoulder as he's reached Griffith, and then the Behelit has this expression, And that's how we know shit's gonna go down. Like, everything you need to know about how bad things are, that expression. Let me do my best Behelit. Okay, let me. I think that was pretty good. I think that's pretty good. If you want to do your own Behelit impression, take a photo, upload it on Twitter, at me. I will retweet the best. But then the world begins to transform, and we see an ocean of faces in the sky. F that. Oh, and it's also the land around. They're in the world of misery faces. Like, Mira was like, you know what? That's scary. But let's put it down there too. Everything's fucking terrifying. And we cut away to the child who actually survived the massacre of the majority of the Band of the Hawk. And we see he's actually been with some really nice people. And he's like, oh, okay, thank you for the ride. I'll see you later. And they're commenting on like, that kid's clearly been through hell, which kinda, yeah. And I also like that every time we have just like a nice, decent human interaction, like clearly this boy found these people, they treated him well, they brought him to the place he needed to go to. It was just like a good old time. Every time people treat each other just nicely in Berserk, we only get the very tail end of it. Or it goes horribly wrong. Good people, like as soon as I see someone as a good person in Berserk, I assume they're gonna be fucking murdered horrifically. Or we're only gonna see them for like 2 minutes and then you move on and nothing else. But within this caravan, we actually see Puck, and it's kind of tried to be hidden for like a minute, but like immediately you obviously recognize this is Puck from the beginning of the series. And I felt exactly what the author wanted me to once I saw Puck. I got to go, oh, Puck, fuck. But Puck is talking to what appears to be some form of psychic or prophetic person in this caravan, and they are talking about how just bad things are about to be. They're looking into the kid's future after seeing how like, you know, horrified he was, and realizing like, oh no, the world might be about to end. Which then the person who's prophetic is like, I can't go interfere with the kid. It's against my convictions. To which I'm like, you just said the world might end? And you're not going to go interfere. I don't care what my convictions are. If I see that I don't interfere, the world's gonna end, guess what I'm gonna do? But Puck then goes outside and witnesses the eclipse with everyone else and seems rather excited. I think they'll regret that. We cut back to our main characters, and they are very confused being trapped in what appears to be a hell dimension. And I really want to know how big a fan of Hellraiser Mira was, because it seems like just yes. We see Casca taking charge and trying to organize everybody as Guts gets his hands on Griffith, who is crying blood in a mirror of what's happening with the Behelit. And at this point, knowing what I know, I'm like, Guts, slit his fucking throat. I get why Guts wouldn't do that. He's still confused and unsure, but Guts, slit his fucking throat. And upon this mountain of faces within the ground, we see those same Titan observers looking down, and everyone's like, when did they get there? And we start getting some more horrific narration. The time has come, the time of the great nocturnal festival, the feast that happens once every 216 years. The eclipse. They come, they are coming, the advent, the sovereigns of we, the supernaturals, the advent of the four guardian angels. Which I'd like to say, called it that the angels were kind of the bad ones. Called that, because duh. It's not even like a good call, it's obvious. Also, I want to say, I have a specific fear and hatred of teeth that are like really messed up in like a demonic way, and this close-up, I'm gonna have dreams about that. And now moving on to the next chapter, we see a gargantuan woman begin to arise from the faces. And what I must say is, I like giant woman. She is the most giant woman. Giant woman, good. And she emerges from the bodies of faces with wings appearing around her that at first look like they have feathers, but then seem to form into more like weathery bat wings. And it's like she goes from angelic to demonic in a flash. And I'm taking that as like a perception thing in the art, where at first you're like, oh, we're told they're angels. Look at these big feathery black wings. Oh no, they're leathery. This is downright vampiric. No, stop writing that comment. I know she's not a vampire. She's definitely a succubus-esque demon. I'm just saying the aesthetic is vampiric. I'm literally putting this in there because I know there's going to be one comment that's like, no! I know it. I'm commenting on the aesthetic. And she has a chest piece that I consider kind of fabulous. I'm very much so into the goth aesthetic, and that's a hell of a chest piece. And of course, people are observing like, is that a giant? To which I say, is a giant woman. Make Resident Evil look like Amateur Hour. Obviously, this is one of the main demons we saw within the Black Swordsman, and we have another one of these demons, the more like weird professory looking guy, drop down from the sky. Then we get the little like chubby dude coming up from the dirt as well. I think it's the least intimidating intro. Like other people were like falling down from above. This guy just kind of comes up and is like, I have a bit of a vagina mouth. And then we get probably the most ominous, which is emerging from the shadows, the guy who looks straight up Hellraiserian. Like this guy is just, look at this. Look at this. I see no difference. I like to imagine there's just a cacophony of screaming in this dimension, just always. But then we get a nice little pose-up group shot where they're all like, look, we bad. And one thing I kind of wish there was, we have a super sexy female demon. I'd like a super sexy male demon. That's actually a trope I quite enjoy and I'm putting into one of my own works now. Like, if you're going to have the super sexy temptress demon type, apply it equally to both, as a bi. I would love to see a super jacked, like, I am also a demon. Give us both sides of temptation. Because right now, only the booby side of temptation is there. Give me some chiseled ab temptation. Just fucking Henrico as Geralt of Rivia, but with like black eyes. Oh wait, that actually is just a thing. Oh yeah, there you go. Making my own headcanon here. Can you tell I'm stalling for time because I don't want to get into how awful things are about to be. But then we get the Titans celebrating the arrival of the demons and the lines,
I bid you welcome to this transcendent place, this abstract time. You lambs of the unholy god born of man, enjoy this sacred nocturnal festival to the fullest. You horrible child consecrated by the law of causality. The Hawk.
We get this look on Griffith's face where I think he didn't know quite what he was in for. This is a face of someone going like, maybe I f***ed up. These lines were obviously kind of confusing members of the Band of the Hawk, but it continues.
You are the chosen one, at this time, in this place, the one chosen by the hand of the great god. You are our kinsman, the blessed king of longing.
And I love that Guts, consistent with the character, in the middle of a demon of unfathomable power and time, just yells, enough of your stupid shit. And I don't know why, but in my head he's got a Boston accent for that. But then Guts continues, first you drag us into this godforsaken hole, then you say whatever the hell you want. Consecrated child kinsman, keep that dumb bullshit to yourself. I've even seen this guy naked before. He ain't got so much a tail growing. Don't lump him together with you freaks. How dare you say my friend here is like one of you? Yes, he's an extraordinarily ambitious man with oceans of bodies in his past who has shown a disregard for even those closest to his safety, but he is still a person who has had almost all of his motor function taken from him, which has shown some very erratic and unstable behavior, but still, he's a good guy who we all have been pretty much sacrificing everything to help achieve his dreams of power. Such a beautiful friendship. I'm sure you'll make an excellent sacrifice. And Guts is like, sacrifice? And she replies, yes, a precious sacrifice, so that he may become a demon. I feel dread from my toes to my head. And then we get the little professory looking guy going, from the moment you took possession of the Crimson Behelit, you had the qualities to become a demon. No, perhaps I should say that because you had the qualities, it fell into your hand. That you used the Behelit to summon us is evident that you are qualified to be our kinsman. After all, the apostles gathered here used Behelits to obtain their proper form. And here we're kind of verging into like, little too exposition-y here. I don't fully believe these mega demons would be just expositing to these people, but I'm totally forgiving it because it absolutely needs to occur for us. Actually, does it? I guess it does. But yeah, it's getting there for me, but I still am totally in the vibe of the moment. But we finally have it said that he doesn't have a regular Behelit, he has the Crimson Behelit, which means he will be the king of demons. So Griffith is about to be getting a promotion. But there's something about the way Griffith is drawn here that I really love, where there's still some hesitance, there's some like looks to his face where he seems shocked, revolted, unsure, but because of the Black Swordsman, we all know where this is going. It's like watching sludge get pulled into a drain. It's inevitable, the conclusion, the emptiness, the horror, but you still have to witness it, and that does justify the weaker start to Berserk for me, because I don't know if I would be as tense if I thought there was a way out. Maybe it would be more enjoyable if I didn't know for sure, but at the same time, I very much so love the current way I'm feeling reading this. But the demons essentially say, yes, everyone here has been brought as a sacrifice that Griffith will willingly give over. And we get to the line, all lies within the currents of causality. And this is a trope I kind of like. When you have extra-dimensional evil things, entities, I like when they speak in a way that feels very different. That feels like this isn't from an earthly way of talking. And that's exactly how these demons are hitting. And yeah, it's a bit clunky, but it's like supposed to be. It very much so works for me. But they essentially go on to emphasize this has all just been planned out. This is a part of a causality, and you have been caught up in essentially what appears to be a hellstorm. A really good usage of the word hellstorm. You don't get that too often. And finally, the ground shifts to bring Griffith away from everyone else. Guts, having been holding onto him, actually manages to grab onto Griffith and is trying to come up with him in this pillar that is arising from the ground. Unfortunately, he's unable to hold on and falls, and we again get a shot from Griffith that shows genuine horror watching his friend fall, because there's one thing we do know. Griffith, in his own way, does care about Guts. He may be jealous of Guts right now and what he's developing with Casca, but he does care about Guts. But we see Guts, being the stubborn bastard he is, takes a blade, shoves it into a wall, and slows his descent. And with anyone else, I'd be like, that's not possible, but with Guts, I'm like, fuck. Of course it is. And he starts climbing up this hand, which we do see is at like one of those angles. It's not just straight up. It's at like an angle that makes what Guts is doing a bit more believable. You wouldn't be able to like run up it casually, but you'd definitely be able to climb it, I think. We then get a bit more monologuing from the demons where they tell Griffith they're going to go deep within his psyche to essentially balance whether or not he actually is capable of this ascension. And here we see him running through the city trying to get through that castle once again. He asks an old woman where his friends are because the city seems completely abandoned, and she points him down a dark alley. And here we get a whole lot of censorship as Griffith finds himself walking on an endless pile of bodies. Not endless, actually there's a very distinct end for a reason. The child version of Griffith is in absolute horror as he realizes what is around him, and he sees one of his own friends is basically saying like, come on, let's go to the castle. But behind him from the mist, we actually see the members of the Band of the Hawk walking forward, but they're all already dead in this vision. And I think even outside the vision, they're already dead as well. There is no situation possible in which the members of the Band of the Hawk are going to be able to get out here alive. It's just Griffith deciding whether or not their deaths will be helping him get towards the goals he's set for himself, or they'll just die because they've been trapped in this dimension. Or maybe the demons would let all these people go without killing them if Griffith said no. I doubt it, but maybe. It's the choice I'd make, because, you know, if you're going to save your friend's life and it's 0.001% chance, you still take that 0.001% chance. But Griffith, not that kind of guy, because we see the old woman from before come up to him, and it's actually one of the demons in disguise, and she's saying, you mustn't turn back now. All these people who have died to get you this far, their lives would be a waste if you didn't continue forward, which that's not the way that works, but all right. And Griffith does seem to have a moment where he's willing to back down, but then he's essentially talked further into it. And the final thing that pushes him over the edge is seeing that the friend who was the child vision's already dead. And on top of that, there's the threat of, if you stop now, you will just become another one of the bodies and never achieve your goal, which to Griffith is an absolute no. And we get the final lines, I can't apologize. No, I won't apologize. If I apologize, if I repent, everything will come to an end. I'll never get to reach that place. And we are then pulled from the internal vision of Griffith's psyche, and we see that the demons have taken that as consent to commence the sacrifice. And the uncensored patrons also pointed out that that little kid is the kid that Casca did that died because of Griffith's ambition, so it's all coming full circle. And if you see someone who left a comment that's like, Daniel, you missed that, you know they didn't see this part of the video yet. You can go laugh at them. It's really hard to do a funny insert when you're talking about some child death. We then get one final monologue from this demon that talks about how Griffith could back down still at this point, and the Band of the Hawk would receive him, would take care of him, and he would just have to let his wounded self be what he lives with forever.
They should receive you warmly, then you can go on living. Commit your wounded self to them. Bury everything in exchange for the past, in the ruins of your dreams. That is the cruel grace of the God born of man. But even so, if you still desire it, if even now that castle is in your eye, more dazzling than anything, then Then pile up all that remains to you. Chant the words, I sacrifice in your heart, and you shall be granted raven black wings, upon which you shall soar from the summit into the heavens. If it has been reasoned that destiny transcends human intellect and make playthings of children, it is cause and effect that a child bear his evil and confront destiny.
I want to talk about this so much because it's basically a really condensed compounding of the flaw that makes Griffith so evil. Because on face value, ambitious people are not necessarily evil. The tinge that has been with Griffith that perverts who he is since the beginning is not having a limit. Griffith will sacrifice anything and everything to get what he wants, whether it's Guts, Casca, or the entire Band of the Hawk. He has played with the idea and the facade of having those lines, but at the core of it, we have never seen him back down or give up when it comes to needing to pile up the bodies as high as they may be to reach that castle. And the breaking down of him into the state he's in currently is kind of what made this an absolute inevitability and prevented him from having any more growth to then shift away from this path. I don't believe it was necessarily the cruelty inflicted on him, and instead it's more about the future laid out before him where he will not be able to pursue any dreams, hence why that line about dreams has such an impact on him in this panel. It's also why his anger and jealousy around Casca and Guts has been a narrative focus recently as well. Yes, he could go back to being taken care of by them, but that isn't a life he wants because he'll just have something dangled in front of him. I don't think Griffith, even in his best form, could ever truly attain or appreciate, and that is being content in a simpler life with love. And that's why we had that vision of him more domestic with Casca. That would have never satisfied him, despite, if it did, being a way for him to achieve true happiness. And Casca, certainly at many points in the story, would have jumped at the idea of doing that with Griffith, but it would have never satiated him, because he was always a demon. Then we have Guts interrupting yet again, being quite rude, yelling, Griffith! And he turns, seeing Guts saying, yes, out of thousands of comrades and tens of thousands of enemies, you're the only one. You're the only one who made me forget my dream. And then we have Griffith saying, sacrifice. The hand of the pillar that they are on envelops Griffith, and Guts again screams his name in defiance, not believing what he is seeing. The demons celebrate, saying the promised time has come, and we watch brands descend down onto every member of the Band of the Hawk as unspeakable monstrosities begin attacking them. And then we enter a chapter titled The Feast. And the Band of the Hawk is not just massacred, they are eaten. And it is specifically noted that this is a unilateral slaughter. Casca, seemingly almost catatonic, is witnessing just absolute brutalization of the people she has led. And Guts, looking down, sees this slaughter begin. Still believing in Griffith as the demons monologue about what is happening, Guts can't believe that Griffith would do this, saying there's no way he'd do that. Never. He'd never say something like that. And after processing what's occurring, we have this larger frame of Guts looking into the faces, saying, is this what you wanted? Demons come for Guts as well, and our last frame we see of Guts here is him turning to fight what seems an insurmountable force of demons descending upon him. We get this image of Griffith transforming with the line, it has been determined. We cut to the outside here as the boy crests a hill, thinking he's going to meet with the Band of the Hawk, and just when things can't get worse for him, instead, he witnesses a gargantuan black hurricane that seems to be the portal to this hell dimension, and he is frozen in fear as he sees two figures at the bottom of it, Nosferatu Zod and assumedly the king of the ancient kingdom with the skull helmet. Holy crap. I know there's going to be a lot of people who really want me to continue on in this moment, but it's where this deluxe volume finishes, and I need to be conscious of time for my editing and wrist as well. In terms of earning everything that's happened, despite some stumbles along the way, Berserk has managed to craft what I consider a near-perfect downfall. Watching Griffith slowly descend into this madness has been absolutely addicting. Seeing Guts' questioning of the world around him, his managing to break off from this cult-like mentality while finding purpose in himself, has been inspirational, well, horrific. Casca's ability to lead, so much development in her, and strength and intelligence and patience, while still being manipulated and controlled, has been such a great tragedy. tragedy to witness. And on top of those characters, we also have had this very subtly nuanced yet very flushed out mythos established for us, where you as the reader understand the deceptions that are going on with religious type institutions and things here, and how there are these seedy underbellies of demonic influence creating and enhancing all of this brutality, bringing out the worst in people. The main characters are fighting forces they don't even know they're fighting, but they're doing a pretty good job of it while failing. There's so many layers to Berserk, and it takes a while for them to start registering and picking up on all of them, and it has me just f***ing flummoxed when it comes to what will be next. I am on the edge of my seat. I want to read on, but I got to get to editing. For me, this chunk of Berserk is probably a 9 to 10 out of 10. I feel intense horror. It was a bit rushed to get here, and the bit with the Behelit isn't my favorite plot device, but putting those completely subjective criticisms aside, I'm in awe of the grandeur, the horror, the atmosphere, the immersion I feel at every single step of this building to a climax. And I'm stopping right before the crest. I know how frustrating that is, but it just means next week you get even more thoughts and deep dive into there, because I give myself breathing room. So if you'd like to see the uncensored version of the video, please hop on over to Patreon and like and subscribe if you have not already. I've got books and merch if you'd like to see some creations from myself, and have a good one, y'all. I love ya. Bye! And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons: Jeremy, Potato, Akil George, Stephen Taylor, Zachary John, Enrico Franco, Adam Allen, and Alician Lore.